The summer heat lingered late into the evening, wrapping the house in a slow, lazy warmth. I had just finished setting out ingredients for dinner when the doorbell rang. My son's best friend, Ethan, stood there, tall and effortlessly handsome, his easy smile framed by the setting sun behind him. "Hey, Mrs. Carter," he said with that boyish charm of his. "Josh asked me to drop by. He's running late from practice, but he said I could help you with dinner." I hesitated for just a second before letting him in, brushing a loose strand of hair behind my ear. Ethan had always been polite, sweet even, but tonight there was something different about him. Maybe it was the way his dark t-shirt clung to his chest or how his damp hair fell slightly across his forehead. "Thanks, Ethan. That's thoughtful of you," I said softly, motioning him toward the kitchen. I tried to stay focused on the chopping board, but I couldn't ignore the way his presence filled the space. The kitchen suddenly felt smaller, warmer, like the air itself had shifted. He washed his hands and came to stand beside me, close enough that I could catch the faint scent of his cologne, clean, fresh, with something deeper underneath. "Want me to start on the vegetables?" he asked, his voice low and smooth. "Sure," I replied, handing him a knife, my fingers brushing his for just a second longer than they needed to. It was innocent. Completely innocent. At least that's what I told myself. As we worked side by side, our conversation flowed easily, but there was a tension beneath every word. I laughed at one of his jokes, and when I glanced up, I caught him looking at me. Not the casual glance of a friend, but something deeper, warmer. My stomach tightened, and I quickly looked away. I knew this was dangerous. Ethan was just 22, barely older than my son. And yet, as the minutes passed, I couldn't deny the energy sparking between us, subtle but impossible to ignore. He leaned closer, reaching for the cutting board, and his arm brushed against mine. I froze for just a heartbeat, aware of the heat radiating off his skin. "Sorry," he murmured, his voice quiet, almost intimate. "It's okay," I whispered, my breath catching in my throat. The silence stretched, thick with unspoken words. I stepped toward the sink to rinse my hands, trying to steady myself, but I felt him behind me, close enough that I could sense his warmth without touching. "Mrs. Carter," he said softly, his voice different now, lower, hesitant. I turned slightly, meeting his gaze. There was something in his eyes I hadn't seen before, something raw and unguarded. "Ethan," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Neither of us moved for a moment. The kitchen was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the faint ticking of the clock. Then, slowly, deliberately, he reached out and tucked a loose strand of hair behind my ear. His fingertips grazed my skin, and the simple gesture sent a shiver racing down my spine. "You look beautiful tonight," he said softly. I should have stopped him. I should have said something, anything to break the moment. But instead I stood frozen, my heart pounding. "Ethan, we shouldn't," I began, but the words died on my lips when he stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the heat between us. "I know," he murmured, his breath brushing against my cheek. "Tell me to stop." But I didn't. When his lips found mine, it was soft at first, tentative, as if he was giving me the chance to pull away. But I didn't. Instead, I leaned into him, my hands finding his shoulders as weeks, months, years of loneliness and longing unraveled in an instant. The kiss deepened, slow and hungry, his hand sliding gently to the small of my back. The world outside ceased to exist. The kitchen, the ticking clock, everything disappeared until there was only us. I pulled back just enough to breathe, my forehead resting against his. "This is wrong," I whispered, but my voice trembled with desire, not conviction. "Then why does it feel so right?" he asked, his thumb brushing lightly along my jawline. Had no answer. Somehow we found ourselves moving, tangled in the soft glow of the kitchen lights, the half-prepared dinner forgotten on the counter. His touch was both gentle and urgent, his fingertips tracing the curve of my arm, my waist, my back, memorizing me in ways no one had in years. He whispered my name like a promise, and I whispered his like a secret. Every barrier I had built around myself crumbled. Every rule I had lived by vanished beneath the heat of his hands and the intensity of his gaze. By the time we pulled apart, breathless and trembling, the air around us felt charged, alive with something neither of us could take back. I leaned against the counter, trying to catch my breath, my heart still racing. Ethan stood close, his chest rising and falling, his eyes never leaving mine. "We shouldn't." I tried again, but my voice faltered. He reached out, brushing his knuckles softly against my cheek. "I know," he said simply, but there was no regret in his voice, only quiet understanding. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway shattered the moment. My son was home. We exchanged a glance, and without another word, Ethan stepped back, putting just enough space between us to make everything look perfectly normal. By the time Josh walked into the kitchen, we were back to chopping vegetables, laughing softly about something inconsequential, like nothing had happened at all. But as Ethan handed me the last bowl, his fingers brushed mine, intentionally this time, and for just a second our eyes met. The spark was still there, undeniable and dangerous, tucked safely behind polite smiles and casual conversation. That night, after everyone went to bed, I lay awake replaying every moment, the way he'd looked at me, the way he'd touched me, the way I'd let him. I knew nothing could happen again. I told myself that over and over, but deep down I knew the truth. Something between us had shifted, and there was no going back. The next morning, the sunlight streamed through the kitchen window, glinting off the counter where everything had happened. I stood there with my coffee, staring at the half-finished dinner from the night before, replaying every stolen glance, every whisper, every breathless moment. Ethan hadn't texted. I hadn't either. But I knew it wasn't over. There was something in the way he'd looked at me before leaving, a silent promise, unspoken yet undeniable. I touched my lips, remembering his kiss, the way my heart had raced like it hadn't in years. I knew the line had been crossed, and though I told myself it was a mistake, deep down, a part of me didn't regret it at all. And that terrified me, almost as much as it thrilled me.